All right, let's talk about particle generators. Let's dissect one of these particle generators a bit. Blank project here. I'm going to create a new composition, so Command N for new, and I'm going to just use the NTSC DV preset. No, I lied. I hate that preset. Let's do 720p, HDTV 720 2997. Duration, I'm going to make this 20 seconds just so I have a little bit more time to work with. All right, so that's a good size. Particle generators are one of those effects that need to be placed on a solid layer. So we need to create a black solid to begin with. So Command Y to create a solid, make it black. Click OK. OK. And if we go to the effects and presets, I'm going to go to start typing in particle. And I think the one I want is particle playground. No, I don't know. No, I don't know. Particle systems 2. Okay, this one's pretty easy to work with. All right, so with particles, think about particles like dust in the air, or the spray of mist, or the production of smoke and the rising of smoke. Okay, think of it that way. They originate from somewhere. Okay, so if you have a hose and you spray water, the origination point is the handle on your sprayer. Okay, that's what your generator is, or your producer. Okay, they're called different things. They're either generator, producer, or emitter, but that's where the particles come from. So if it's smoke, what's smoke's relationship with gravity? It goes up, right? So if you're thinking about physics, gravity, smoke is lighter than air, so it would rise. And then with water is heavier than air, and so water would fall to the ground. So the value of gravity on something that looks like water would go down. But if it looks like a fireworks, before gravity has its chance to have its effect on fireworks, they disappear before the firework has, before the particles start to fall. I'm so eloquent. So let's think about it that way. Right now we've got this little sprayer. All these particles are coming out of one point right in the middle. And then gravity is starting to take hold. And then most of them, these ones up here at the top, they're disappearing before they get the chance to really fall back down. Okay, so let's go from top to bottom and go through the settings of the particle systems 2 particle generator. So we have birth rate. Birth rate is the equivalent to how your flow. Okay, it's like your flow of your stream of water here. So as you can see, this is keyframeable. If you want to have just a tiny little bit, very light, then you can leave it low. Or you can keyframe it so that there's like major spray. Okay? So that's your birth rate. How many of these particles are flying out of the origination point? Longevity. That ought to make sense. This goes in seconds. So 1 second would mean that these particles are going to be born, and then after 1 second, they're going to disappear and die. They're going to be gone. If we make the longevity a lot higher, like 10 seconds, then that gives them plenty of time to exist. Even these top ones, that gives them plenty of time to leave till they go off the screen. I'm going to turn this down to 0.5. Now we've got a little sparkler. All right, so our producer. Let's take a look at our producer. Currently, this is the position of the producer. Right now, it's in the middle of the screen. That's keyframeable, which means you can have this thing wave around the screen. What we really ought to do is go outside and videotape somebody with a flashlight and then motion track their flashlight and then put this on it. It'll look like they got a sparkler in their hand that they're waving around. Okay. You know what? We should do that for fun when we come back from spring break. All right. Like I said, we're coming up with ideas. So our producer, our radius and our x value right now is 3 pixels, but we can expand that. Actually, that looks like percentage. That's 100%, the width of the screen. Our y can go up to, well, maybe it is some sort of pixel value. All right, so now we just got scattering things moving around because the producer is like the size of the screen now. If we make this 1 and 1, then it makes it really, really small, so it's a point. So physics, let's take a look at physics. Right now we've got explosive. We can do fractal explosive, which has little heavy areas. We can do a twirl. Okay, so we got like some spirally stuff going on. Twirly. So that's maybe a little bit more of a random twirl. Vortex. Ooh. And fire. Okay, so those are kind of presets. Then we can do direction where we can tell it to go. We can tell it to go out in one direction or another. Inherent velocity. Inherent velocity, I think, relates to the position of the emitter itself. So let me just try adding keyframes to the position of the emitter and see if I'm right. I might be wrong. Oh yeah, okay. See how there's like a little bit of a following going on here? Maybe that's just the effect of it coming out that way. Let's turn off inherent. Oh, it is off. Now I just turned it up a whole bunch. Boom. Okay, so it's linked to the position as the position of the emitter moves. The position of the emitter. The solid layer needs to stay right where it is. All right, so let's put this back in the middle. Turn off keyframes. All right, so gravity. Gravity right now is, if I crank that way up, then it doesn't, like, even though the velocity is pretty high on these particles, if I turn them all the way off, then it'll turn into one little stream. Laser shot. Of course, yeah, now we got fire coming out of there. All right. Resistance, this is your air resistance. So let's turn the gravity down a little bit. Turn that down to maybe 2. Oops. All right. And then air resistance. Let's make this more explosive. And if I turn up the air resistance, then as it comes out, they're going to come out really fast, but then they're going to be slowed down by heavier and heavier air. Okay? So they're not making it very far out before they die. Let's make the life a little bit longer. Give them a chance to live. Okay, so looks kind of like a sprinkler. All right. And then there's extra stuff like mess with that. Keyframe that while it's exploding. Be fun, right? Okay. So that's your physics. Now let's mess with the particle itself. Right now, the particle is a line. See these little teeny lines that are coming out? As they move faster, they're long, and as they move slower, they kind of collapse and become a smaller shape. But we can turn them into stars. Mm-mm. 70s are calling me. We can change these to a shaded sphere. We can turn it into a shaded and faded sphere. We can have the birth size be really big and then the death size be really small, so they start out really small, or really big and then turn small. Or we can go the opposite. We can have it start out really small, like 0, and then have it end really big, so it looks like they're kind of turning into smoke as they reach the end of their life. Let's make this 1 second long. Okay. We can have its birth color, so it starts out as white, and then we can have its death color and green. Birth to death, color map, origin to death. Interesting changes. All right, and under transfer mode, we can do composite, screen, add. So as these are on top of each other, they interact with each other a little bit differently. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this extra so that it's kind of flying out in this one direction. And then I'm going to change this to a screen mode. Then I'm going to make the size variation really, really extreme. But I need to make this depth size smaller because they're getting too covered up over one another. And then I'm going to go up to the top and just change this birth rate down a little bit lower to like 1. Now I've got something a little bit more subtle. Okay, it was getting kind of extreme there at first. And then if I want to, I can turn gravity to 0. And then it's just this little thing that spits out, generates random things. I'm going to turn this birth rate down even more. Now I've got like this little, just slight background. Longevity, velocity. I'm going to turn the air resistance way down also, maybe even to 0. And then if I turn the velocity way down also, then hopefully they'll just kind of be these little things that are released and just continue to float. Okay, that's all right. Now, direction. If I turn this on its side and then have it start over here, then maybe these things will just fly off to the side. Make the longevity longer. Cute.
Oh, it's similar to the particle dust we used in Premiere.
Now the generator is just coming from one point, but if I want that to be this nice, just kind of floating thing that goes all the way across the screen, then if I change that vertical all the way, then I've just got, that's kind of fun. Nice little dust effect. And that's with 0 gravity, really low velocity, no resistance. All right. Oh, that extra thing really changed the way that came out. See what, I'm going to keyframe that. I want to see what would happen. Let's just watch. Now they're starting to go out in random directions. The random seed will change that also. Anyway. Kind of like that. I'm going to have to remember that one. All right, so that's the particle generator. There is one part of the assignment that requires some particle generation. Let's see, let's drag this down. So one thing you can do now that you've done this is you could draw a mask around this solid and isolate it to just this area and then composite this solid on top of another layer, like another solid maybe. So if I duplicate that, no. Let's make a new solid. Let's make this one a light blue. We need to put it below. Then I'm going to draw another mask around. Dang it. I'm being such a rookie here. Select the layer, grab my mask tool, put it there. Maybe I'll expand this mask out a lot farther. Hit F for feather, feather that mask a bunch. Then I have kind of like this little conduit where the particles are flying through. And then if I use a transfer mode to do a little add, then it creates some motion inside there. I don't like that mask. I'm going to copy the mask from the black solid, paste it onto the blue solid, then position that over the top. There. Now I got just like a visual element going on in there for some visual interest. If that's kind of too extreme for you too, you can drop the opacity of the particles down. Then it becomes just a really subtle little extra thing. That'll be useful in your lower titles for adding particles. All right. Any questions about that particle emitter? You're all very quiet. It's like you're afraid. Afraid to have your voice heard on the YouTube videos. All right. That's it for that. Oh, I knew that would be like 20 minutes.